Summit at the Kenyatta International Conference Center. The good news is that the president managed to get pledges worth 26 billion dollars during the Africa Climate Summit, with a promise to push for financing deal from multilateral lenders and have big polluters pay a fair share for their crisis. That particular story, we're going to talk about it this morning. But then let's talk about what's going on in the political economy in the country as well, even as we are getting this good news on the back of the just concluded climate summit in the country. The Orange Democratic Movement has expelled 5 members of parliament as it cracks the whip on rebels. Now, there have been talks about how the opposition side has been asking the government to stop the rout on the political parties in the country. On the back of those ongoing talks at the Bomas of Kenya, the ODM has gone right ahead and cracked a whip within their party then, just to make it clear on what the members of parliament really have to do, in as much as the political parties act and the ODM constitution is concerned. Now, one of those that we're going to talk about this morning is Gem Member of Parliament Elisha Odhiambo, South Suba Zakarwa Lomondi, Bondo Member of Parliament Gideon Ochanda, Langata Member of Parliament Felix Odiwar aka Jalango, and Kisumu Senator Tom Ojienda, who've been kicked out of the party for associating closely with the Kenya Kwanza government. That's a good development, depending on where you are. There have been questions that have been raised to the National House Chair, Moses Wetangula, from the minority side in Parliament, on what should happen to the members of Parliament who, in one way or another, the ODM party or the minority side have felt that these guys have crossed. Nothing came of it, and the conversation around that was like somebody somewhere was enjoying what was a seeming split within the ODM party or the Jubilee party. But now the ODM party is just making itself clear that if you cross, you are out. And now for the next 3 months, essentially these ones have been out. And if you look at Rongo Member of Parliament Paul Labor and his already counterpart Mark Nyamita, who have also faced similar allegations, on the other hand, fined 1 million shillings each to be paid within 60 days. Also, Nairobi woman representative Esther Passaris was also reprimanded for her defiance of the party position and was ordered to issue a written apology to the party within 7 days, and was also fined 250,000 shillings, also to be paid within 60 days. Her biggest mistake was supporting the finale, which essentially became the Finance Act 2020-23. This and much more that we're going to talk about this morning right here on the Morning Drift. My name is Simba Kiage. Thank you very much for waking up with us right here on Lookuptv. We have a jam-packed session for you all the way up to 10 a.m. Oof, those are 3 hours, straight ones, yeah, of this face. Oh yeah. Once we come back, I'll be taking you straight to your newspapers this morning. Yeah, it's 3 hours, isn't it? Yeah, so maybe 2 hours and a couple of minutes now left. Let's then get started. Now, on the Daily Nation this morning, here's the thing. The bigger headline here, other than ODM party rebels paying hefty price as Raila cracks the whip, is what Africa wants on the back of the Africa Summit 2023. Good picture right there of President of Kenya, William RUTO, surrounded by other African leaders, delivering his closing speech during the closing ceremony of the Africa Climate Summit 2023 at the Kenyatta International Convention Center in Nairobi yesterday. Now, the leaders called for an overhaul of the world's debt financing system, which they said should tilt the scales in favor of a natural endowed continent. particular story, by the way, has been covered on page 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And this particular summit took 3 days of intense negotiations and discussions at the Kenyatta International Convention Center. Been covering all this, and by the way, this story again is going to appear heavily on our website on www.lookuptv.co.ke. Visit, then you know exactly what it is. That particular story of ODM party rebels paying hefty price as Raila cracks the whip has been covered on page 7. The ones who are out are Odiwar, Omondi, Ojienda, Gideon Ochanda, Elisha Odhiambo, and the ones that have been fined include Esther Pasaris. We talk about that this morning. So there's a lot to look forward to right here on the morning drift, on a big discussion. The panelists are walking shortly into the studio so we can then make sense of what follows next in this ODM declaration. Now, on the back page, the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Machogu, has extended varsity loan applications period. Students now joining university have until October 7th. Read that particular story on the back page. And by the way, that requirement for identity card has also been expunged because there are some kids who are joining university below the age of 18. So they do not need an ID or a PIN. Is it okay? And they should be allowed to join university below the age of 18? I don't know. You tell me. Good. Let's then cross over to the Standard. This is the bigger story here. 3.9 trillion on the table for climate work, as the headline. President William Ruto managed to get pledges worth 26 billion during the Africa Climate Summit with a promise to push for a financing deal from multilateral lenders and the big polluters pay their fair share for crisis. That particular story covered on pages 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 of the Standard. On page 8, you're going to read that particular story right there of Raila Amolo Odinga cracking the whip within the ODM party in as regards the rebels. That rebels is in quotes. On page 8, you're going to read the story of how Koome is now saying that judicial independence is under attack. By the way, this coming on the back of a conversation that we had yesterday right here on the morning drift on why she hasn't spoken about some of the quotes that have come from the executive on big cases that are sitting at the judiciary table right now as we speak. This is what she's saying, but I'm going to read this. She's saying that independent institutions have encroached on the terrain reserved for the judiciary and the Judicial Service Commission, posing challenges in facilitating the administration of justice. She also noted that the Judicial Service Fund was not operating optimally due to bureaucratic bottlenecks and roadblocks erected by the controller of budgets. You think so? All right? Read that particular story on page 8, and that particular story on how you have now 30 more days to apply for university funding. A particular story covered on page 9 of the Daily Nation, of the Standard. And by the way, for all the football fans who keep on crying that Man United robbed Arsenal of the goals this weekend, listen, it's not robbing. It's not robbing. The VAR is essentially a game for margins. And I'm talking about that because on the last page of the Standard, there is now a declaration that has been made by that PGML. For those guys who know, it's just a body of referees who just go in and look at how this particular games have ended. This is what they're saying. Webb is now admitting that Nathan Ake's goal against Fulham was offside. That's the only one. When we came to VAR with Arsenal goals, VAR checked the Kai Havertz dive. They ruled it off. But when they checked that Garnacho's goal, they found it to be off. It's a margins game. Stop saying that you are robbed. You are not. Ask the right questions as to why Maguire and Johnny Evans are playing for your team, not what the referees did this weekend. It's not part of a conversation. Good. Enjoy your 2 weeks of mystery. You're back again with Brighton on 16th. Let's see what you can do. Once we come back, I'll be taking you straight to your newsroom then, where we get to look at the biggest stories that you are waking up to this morning. Good morning. Welcome back. Now, a student in Kisii is appealing to the government and Good Samaritans to help him secure his hard-earned opportunity at the University of Nairobi to pursue medicine. Geoffrey Isaboke has been unable to further his education due to fee arrears from his secondary school. Faith Bonareri with the details.
Geoffrey Isaboke sits deep in thoughts at his home in Mogire, Kisii County. As he ponders what his future holds, he has seen brighter days, especially when he scored an A in the 2022 KCSE exams. The joy was, however, short-lived after he failed to secure a place at the University of Nairobi, where he was called to pursue a medical course.
Up to now, sijaendea hiyo result slip ama living certificate yenye ni requirement before niende UON School of Medicine. So bado kuna fee pending around 60,000 tunafaa kulipa. Alafu pia kuna pesa nyingine pia ile kwa 10k ya motivation pia bado tujalipa.
For months he has been unable to clear outstanding debt of 70,000 shillings in the secondary school, hence missing out on a result slip. According to his mother Jacqueline Maina, a well-wisher had funded Maina's secondary education up to Form 3 before he withdrew the scholarship due to sickness, making her struggle to pay for the rest of the balance fee.
Sina mahali penye nitatoa school fees niende kulipia huyu mtoto. Sasa ndio maana nilikuwa naomba serikali yetu hii nisaidie. Mheshimiwa Jarison Njoke, MCA juu Omwando na Simba Arati gavana yetu ya Kisii County na Manjoku mwenye anasaidia kwa elimu. Nimeomba serikali yetu inisaidie huyu mtoto atoke nje aende shule. Sina penye nitatoa pesa.
Jacqueline is now appealing to the government and well-wishers to help her foot for her son's university education. Faith Bonareri, Lookuptv.
Cry for education. Access in this country, is it affordable, as they say? It is. Now, an Nairobi court has convicted 2 social workers for trafficking 3 infants 3 years ago at Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital. Now, the court, in its decision, said that prosecution has established a case against them and that the 2 acted in disregard of the social workers' ethics. Noshena Mungasia with the details.
Selina Adundo and Fred Leparan, former social workers, have been convicted of trafficking 3 infants 3 years ago at Mama Lucy Hospital.
And the Office of the Medical Social Worker had to ensure that after the children are discharged, a safe place for these children had to be established, having worked together with the Children's Office. This was not the case.
Magistrate Esther Kimilu noted that there was evidence that there was a conversation between Fred, Selina and Rose, who posed as the buyer of the children, as the evidence was clear and recorded in a videotape. The court said that Fred decided to hand over the children to Rose against the acts and ethics of social workers.
This person is expressing some fears that this discussion should be held in confidence and that there need to be trust. Little did he know the whistleblower and Rose were in a meeting.
The prosecution told the court that between 1st March 2020 and November 16, 2020, at Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital in Embakasi Central within Nairobi, jointly with others not before the court, they conspired to commit a felony, namely trafficking persons.
I am of the view that the Office of Medical Social Worker at that time did not do their duty because there was no communication between the office and the children office.
During the court hearing, one of the witnesses narrated to the court how Fred Leparan took 300,000 shillings from a journalist in an illegal sale of abandoned babies at the hospital. The court has now ordered the two to be remanded accordingly, as they are now convicts.
Remand, while the second accused person shall be remanded at Langata.
Nushin Mungasia, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
WorldCoin Chief Executive Officer Alex Blenia has stated that the company is not in any way involved in mining data or later selling the said data, but actively involved in authenticating if one is human and uniquely categorizing them. Appearing before the parliamentary committee, WorldCoin stakeholders claim that the 48 orbs used had a prerequisite clearance from CAK before they started being used, and that over 600,000 Kenyans have downloaded the app so far.
The Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee presiding over investigations against the WorldCoin company has today raised concerns claiming that the Data Commission company has revoked their registration that was done months ago after the public started raising questions about the ongoing activities in the country.
Just trying to inform you, we had the KICC here, and the booking was done for a day, and we had about 3,000 Kenyans lining up that day. So you can imagine having 3,000 plus people lining, going through the scanning, the information desk, so it was not practically possible.
Dagoretti South MP John Kiage roasting the cryptocurrency officials, expressing concerns on how informed were the Kenyans at the time of registration.
Is WorldCoin, as is formulated, a project or an effort that was geared towards enrolling Kenyans into a new world system of a decentralized currency? Would you term your orb as a communication device? And if you classify it as a communication device, is it known to you that in Kenya, any telecommunication device has to get a type approval from the Communications Authority?
Speaking at the City Hall mini chambers during an engaging sitting, the CEO WorldCoin Alex Blania has explained that the activities didn't violate any laws of the land and they had a legal team that were advising them.
I could not stronger and more forcefully say that that is absolutely not possible. The orb is certified. First of all, the orb is produced in Germany. It is certified by the German, one of the strictest certification agencies in the world, TÜV Rheinland. It also has been, all the certifications I think are even listed in this document, and you can study in more detail. But I think the most important question here, the most important statement is, the orb cannot, absolutely impossible, cause any health issues.
Questions of whether the cryptocurrency company came in as a business entity or a data collecting company is still in question.
Specific on what gave you the strength to be able to go to the ground, hire the team which you hired through the marketing sense, and start collecting data, because that is very, very important.
WorldCoin is not a company, but rather an investment under the Tools of Humanity, a company based in the United States of America. Thomas Sedo explains that Kenya was a suitable target due to its adoption of technology.
Tools for Humanity is the company that started this journey. As Alex said, it was founded by him and Sam Altman, our most famous colleague, and a third person, Max Novenstern, who's no longer with our project. We have two entities, one in the United States, where I sit and work, and a wholly owned subsidiary in Germany.
Nevertheless, they justified why they were scanning the iris, saying that this was to ascertain that indeed one was a unique human being. The sitting has been adjourned until tomorrow by the ad hoc chairperson committee. Ruga Ival, Lookuptv.
Now, as a climate change conversation takes center stage in Nairobi, the media has been termed as a critical component in amplifying the climate voices and the impact of climate change. This came during a roundtable media conversation organized by the different organizations, which include HIVOS and the Journalists for Human Rights.
It is a roundtable conversation with journalists that sought to explore how grassroots stories on climate action can be amplified in the mainstream media. This coming at a time when the country is hosting the Africa Climate Summit.
Media organizations do not, most of the time, allocate funds to cover climate change, to cover environment. The only time a journalist is likely to get an opportunity to go and cover anything around climate change is when there is a disaster. When there is drought in Turkana or Marsabit, which is actually as a result of climate change.
Producing climate change stories is very expensive, and our media organizations cannot afford to support journalists all of the time. For example, Nairobi-based journalists do not have many stories about climate change to report on. So we must travel to where these stories are. This includes, for example, flying to Turkana, which I will say is one of the farthest areas and with people who are affected by climate change. Journalists require ongoing capacity building in order to continue covering climate change stories. We can be consistent in our reporting on the subject because of this consistency, if we get the support.
Of the lighting instruments that are coming up, that are new technology, how do we educate them to become distributors and sellers to the other people in their villages so that they can become economically empowered? How do we do that? We can only do that through education and information. However, there's not enough people to do that. So the key stakeholders who are partners in those areas, including the fourth estate, need to come together so that we all rally behind these issues and help our women see the opportunities that exist within the environment space that is actually offering them solutions that can help them become better in their lives.
HIVOS, Mama Doing Good, and Journalists for Human Rights, the partners in this event, argue that at the grassroots is where the urgency is felt the most, making the conversation about cultivating a grassroots movement that turns every Kenyan into a committed conversationist and a catalyst for change.
We in Africa are saying that we are going to act on the issues that are affecting us from a climate perspective.
We should not take advantage of this resilience that is displayed by our people and allow the heavy emitters of carbon dioxide to get away with it without by not paying for the adoption costs.
The Moro village live in the highland, and during this water increase of water from the lakes, they were locked in a highland. They were locked in island, and therefore they could not access the amenities. The school is the other side of the outside the lake, the dispensary and the market.
Sometimes there's an inability of journalists to understand climate change as a bit. When a journalist goes to cover famine or drought, is that climate change? Are they able to link that to the effects of the changing, weather patterns? Are they able to link that to climate change?
As the sun sets on the Africa Climate Summit in Nairobi, the conversation about climate in Africa has just been amplified from the grassroots to the headlines and then to the boardrooms. The climate conversation is taking shape. Brian Amwai, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
Let's move on to the next story, where more than 500 members of parliament from African countries convened at parliament buildings to discuss legislative interventions to mitigate effects of climate change in the continent. Meeting was part of the inaugural Africa Climate Summit that came to an end yesterday.
At a joint sitting during the African parliamentary sitting presided over by the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, legislators unanimously concurred that parliaments are key to forging consensus on modalities of unlocking Africa's vast potential to positively impact the climate agenda, calling on unity across African lawmakers to make use of the already existing resources.
That we strive to move ourselves from a continent of despair to a continent of hope. Because the future is with us. The future is right here in Africa. There are three lungs of the world in terms of climate: the Congo, the Amazon, and the Borneo in Indonesia. But the Congo is the biggest, the richest ecosystem, and if we protect it, its catalytic effect on many other parts of Africa will be felt.
All legislators agreed that African lawmakers should unite and strengthen ties for the sake of the African continent as it works towards attracting investors for its local market.
However, we still have challenges. The challenges that we have as a country, and that may not only be for Uganda, it could also be to other countries, is we are delving into using renewable energies like solar, among others, that have poor quality. So we need to build our own potential within Africa, within the country, to be able to assemble our own energy plants within the country, so that we do not really rely on poor quality that is brought from the different parts of the world.
We're very pleased with the ambition Kenya has provided for us now on the climate front, but there is a lot we can learn from you. We were very inspired to see that, in fact, Kenya at 92% renewables in their energy mix can speak truth to Germany, to the United States, to China. Why? Because Africa is doing what they have not done. They've caused the climate problem, but in fact, Africans are leading the transformation.
The session saw over 500 African lawmakers convene at the August House as they marked the last day of the African Climate Summit, as Kenya is touted the best with 92% renewable energy in its joint effort in fight against climatic changes.
Not so bad, I would say. And 5 years ago, with some friends, we decided to start with the Global Renewable Forum, Global Renewable Congress, because we would like to support parliamentarians who have the goal of 100% renewables. And that's why I am working very close with Kende and other parliamentarians, because we would like to decide what can we do better, you know? So make practical work, make our homework.
Stanley Lugaria, Lookuptv.
Well, finally this morning then, the inaugural Africa Climate Summit concluded yesterday with the African heads of state pledging to set aside more funding of up to $100 billion to help in battling climate change. And the leaders also resolved to use upcoming summits, including COP28, to continue calling for more funding to African countries in the fight against climate change.
After 3-day consultations and deliberations on tackling climate change, curtains came down on the inaugural Africa Climate Summit, with the summit resolving to call for a new financial architecture for African countries in the fight against the effects of climate change, while calling on their European counterparts to join hands with them in fighting climate change.
We demand a fair playing ground for our countries to access the investment needed to unlock the potential and translate it into opportunities. We further demand a just multilateral development finance architecture to liberate our economies from odious debt and onerous barriers to necessary financial resources. We are clear in our minds and hearts that the international community must walk with us in this journey into a future of prosperity and security in an ecologically balanced, thriving planet.
It is a reprieve for African countries after various key stakeholders promised at least $23 billion to help in curbing the effects of climate change.
During this action-focused summit, various stakeholders, including governments, the private sector, multilateral banks, and philanthropists, have made substantial commitments totaling a remarkable $23 billion for green growth, mitigation, and adaptation efforts across Africa. Notable highlights include a transformative partnership investing $60 million over 2 years in expanding grid access in rural Burundi, a $4.5 billion commitment from the UAE represented here by my brother, to boost renewable energy.
With the summit calling on large emitters to work around reducing toxic emissions and align itself with the Paris Declaration, President RUTO noted that the signing of the green hydrogen strategy with the European Union will help in creating employment, with leaders urged to include the youth in matters environmental conservation.
Kenya's green hydrogen strategy with the European Union is expected to drive and accelerate green manufacturing and create thousands of new high-value jobs, in addition to attracting large private sector investments. Additionally, there has been a notable increase in adaptation financing, reflecting a deep commitment to Africa's sustainable future and energy systems, aligning with the ambitious Nairobi Declaration.
With various climate summits on the horizon, including a COP28 scheduled to take place at the end of this year, the African heads of state vowed to use all available platforms to raise their concerns in regards to matters climate change.
We shall use every available opportunity in the busy multilateral calendar, from the G20 meeting, the United Nations General Assembly in a fortnight, the annual meetings of the World Bank Group and the International Monetary Fund soon thereafter, as well as the COP28, to further prosecute our agenda.
Ian Kitani, Lookuptv.
So, here's the question that we're asking this morning. And it's a very simple question. Raila Amolo Odinga is convinced that the members within the ODM party that have left, you can put that left in quotes or you can put it in bold and underline it. So according to Raila Amolo Odinga, that is in bold and well underlined. According to those party members, they have left in quotes. So the argument is this, and it's plain and simple, that in reality, if you do support the views, the movements of a different political party, according to the Political Parties Act, not even according to the party's constitution. Maybe you and I do not know what the ODM constitution looks like, but according to the Political Parties Act, you should live in a party. And that means there is now a job for the chairman of National House Business then, who is one Moses Wetangula, to make a pronouncement that once those members of parliament now go back to that house, there's going to be a motion that indeed we have strangers in the house. Without a party for the next 3 months. It's been hot and cold of whether he can actually make that pronouncement, but then he left it to the law. Sometimes he had to wait for the High Court to make a ruling. But now, like they say, the ball is in your court. What is Moses Wetangula gonna do? And do you believe that indeed this move by Raila Amolo Odinga was the right one? This morning, we table that conversation, plus other issues involving us going back to the 1997 basis of choosing IEBC commissioners. That conversation coming up shortly right here on The Morning Brief. I do have my guests into the studio shortly. I've just forgotten my tea and my apparatus just before I move into the studio this morning. They're right here with us, so let's sit down and have that conversation shortly once we come back. How are you doing, sir?
Realize your home ownership dream by investing in Brookvale Tuala, a magnificent prime residential property located in Ongata Rongai. Brookvale Tuala by Safaricom Investment Cooperative overlooks the majestic Ngong Hills and lies only 24 kilometers from Nairobi CBD. The project boasts of well-serviced plots with a perimeter wall, graded roads and a borehole. 50 by 100 plots are going for 1.4 million shillings with a flexible payment plan of up to 6 months. To book your plot, call 0729 121212 today. Safaricom Investment Cooperative, the investment partner of choice.
Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for all your visibility and marketing needs. We at Lookuptv understand your business needs and want to work with you on your marketing journey, giving you solutions that will take you to the next level. Call us today on 0705 572 358 or send an email to sales@lookuptv.co.ke and kickstart this amazing journey. Welcome to Lookuptv, your official SME media partner.
As the night falls, we come to life to bring you a comprehensive broadcast from the numerous events happening across our 47 counties.
When it breaks, it matters, and each story is important.
If it's Thursday, join me, Nancy Lima, and my able panelists as we break down the law jargons and analyze the Constitution in a way only you can understand.
The news cycle never stops, neither does time. We cover each and every sector and present to you factual and accurate occurrences. This is where facts win the day. Join me,
Nancy Lima,
Ian Keitani, Tuesday, every Wednesday,
Thursday,
as from 9 p.m. on The Insight, only on Lookuptv.
Hi, and welcome to Tujenge Home. Your #1 show when it comes to all things architecture, real estate, property development, interior design. You get it right here on Tujenge Home. When the food is ready.
You want to serve them?
Dinner is served. Yeah. Let's go.
Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali na manjoro. Kumbuka, hapa ndipo unajifunza mambo mengi kuhusu ukulima. Kilimo ni uti wa mgongo wa nchi, na ukiwa na njoro unajifunza. Kumbuka, angalia mwenyewe. Tunakuambia, ukitaka kujua tips za ukulima, ungana na sisi kwenye Lookuptv. Every Sunday unatukuta pale saa 10, tunakuonesha kuhusu ukulima. Ukulima wa mimea, ukulima wa ng'ombe, ukulima wa kuku, ukulima wa mbuzi na yote ambayo yanahusiana na ukulima. Kumbuka nini? Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali.
Karibu mtazamaji kwenye kipindi cha jamii na itikadi.
Kaini kitako tuna mengi.
Mapenzi yanapoanza watu huitana bebi na majina mengine matamu, lakini baadaye penzi linapogeuka na kuwa shubiri,
mtu anafikia kwenda kumtafuta mke mwingine.
Itakuwaje?
Yule wa kwake nyumbani labda hajamridhisha.
Ni sawa ama vipi Maliki?
Dadangu, wanaume ni kama maembe.
Huyu ni mwanamume atakuja abadiliki.
Mwanaume mwenye wanawake wengi hata katika uchumba, kwenye ndoa ataendelea. Mtu na tabia yake hawachi. Ile umbo la kike likishaanza, kila kitu kishaanza kuwa mahali pake.
Ningependa kukuona.
Sijaenda mahali ambapo mimi nilisikia mtu ati huyu alikuwa shujaa, alikufa katika mstari wa mbele wa ndoa. Sijawahi sikia mimi.
Praise the Lord and Bwana Yesu asifiwe sana. My name is Pastor Josiah. I'm from a ministry called Reconcilers World. God gives strength to the weary. I am, Jesus is speaking. He says, I am the door. Then he says, anyone who enters in through me will be saved. The Lord is my shepherd or shepherd. Then he says, I will always have everything I need. God desires to guide you. He's telling you that this day, don't just trust the Lord, but he's telling you, trust the Lord widely.
Start like this, an introduction. Do you believe that it was right for Raila Amolo Odinga to suspend and fine the errant members of parliament within the ODM party? Talk to us at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. I am at Kiage Simba. Good. The hashtag, as usual, is The Morning Drift. Let's jump into the discussion then. And before I then introduce the topics that we're going to go through this morning, let me then officially introduce to you the panel that is joining us this morning. We do have Gakuna Njima Castro, who's a political and security FFF intelligence analyst. How are you doing, sir? Happy to have you around.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Also joining us this morning, we do have Jackson K. Lungwe, who's an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and a partner at NML Advocates LLP. How are you doing, Jackson?
I'm okay, brother. Thanks.
Happy to have you around.
Pleasure.
Let's begin, and I'm going to start with you, Jackson. Let me begin like this. The minority side in Parliament has always had questions about the way the national chairman, about the chairman of National House Business has been conducting his business in Parliament on this particular front. That they've even given him a whip, but then is not essentially called that to motion and effected it. They've complained to him constantly about how they feel that some members in Parliament have already crossed side, and so he needed to come out and make his pronouncement on these members of Parliament. But Jackson has been quite silent. So yesterday, Raila Amolo Odinga came out and said, we as a party, through the powers of the Political Parties Act and our constitution of the party, the following members are already out of this party. And there are some members here we feel should be fined for their conduct within this party. So now, 5 ODM members, for the next 3 months, according to ODM, they do not have a party, Jackson. Is that the best the ball is in your court now, Mr. Wetangula from ODM?
Yeah, I think I would start at this point by saying that generally what has happened is in accordance with the law, because you see, when we passed our constitution, our constitution is anchored on the basis that we need to have discipline, particularly in the political space.
Yes.
And one way of enhancing discipline in the political space was to provide for entities and associations and different rights. So if you are a member of this party, constitutionally speaking, you are supposed and you are deemed and expected to adhere to the ideals of that party. And therefore you are supposed, even your electorate, because these people were elected on the basis of the platform of that political party, assuming our political parties have platforms. Yes. So if you've been elected on the platform of political party, you are deemed to stick and advance the ideals and the aspirations of that political party. So that in the event that you decide to jump over, in essence, you are telling your electorate that I no longer believe in the things that made you elect me. And therefore, I'm willing to go back and seek fresh mandate. So whatever happened, or rather what happened yesterday, is something that is anchored in the law. And I think it would be, you see now, because we have personalized our politics, yes, we look at it from Raila's perspective. But yes, I think our political parties are supposed to be of age, whereby they have structures, so that if you engage in any sort of indiscipline, then the structures that act on their own, regardless of who is the party leader or who is the chairman. So our political parties are supposed to have infrastructure within themselves, which can now spearhead these things without, for example, the name of Raila coming on paper or the name of the chairman, so that it becomes known that as long as you immediately jump over to the other side, then there are consequences attached to it. Yes. You get. Yes. So what happened is something that is supposed to be supported. Of course, there is politics behind it, because you see, you cannot discipline one person in exclusion, because if you look at this scenario at hand, you realize that in the recent past, even the people who appear to be disciplining others, they have also behaved in a manner to indicate that they had abandoned the ideals of the same political party. Yeah. You get. Yeah. At one point, even the party leader for ODM appeared to be supporting Jubilee. You get. So that is to say that if we had proper structure in place, then even at that point, the party leader of ODM was also liable for disciplinary actions. But nothing happened because we have personalized our politics. You understand? Yeah, so we say that that is something that is supposed to be supported from a legal standpoint, but let us be fair in carrying out such actions.
Yes, Jackson, I'll be coming to you, because there are details then of exactly how they've looked at how to punish these members of parliament. Let me cross over to Castro. Castro, you see, Jackson is looking at it from a wholesome point of view. That's so many ways that you can look at it. There's politics involved. Yes, there is the party mechanism involved. How do you look at this particular issue?
You see, when we are looking at the fidelity and the independence of a political party, yes, as much as we want to play this politics personal, there is that rules and regulations that guide a political party, and there is that the rules and also regulations set to, yes, of course, check and balance all political parties involved in the play. So we are looking at the ORPP regulations, and we are also looking at the constitution of the ODM and any other political party that might get itself to such a situation. Yes. And these regulations, they are set and of course they are regulated. And once, like whatever ODM has said, that once we expel a member of parliament from our party, then that member of parliament also loses his seat. And there is nobody to save such a person, because the fidelity of a party, it is the party, and party has its own ways of resolving disputes. And once a party dissolves its dispute to expel its member, then that member deemed to lose his or her seat as a member of parliament. Yes. But see, such a scenario occurred during the Jubilee time, when the time of President Uhuru Kenyatta, because they attempted to expel some members of parliament, but the court saved them. Persons like Isaac Mwaura, they were in such a scenario, but the court, of course, saved them. But say, how are we safeguarding and how are we strengthening the fidelity and the role of multi-party democracy? It is in such a situation when we are seeing such actions are taken, and then because each and every party has the action plan, as much as each and every party is formed to win a government and make a government, there's those ideologies and the beliefs, visions and missions of every party that people need to be strengthened in. Yes. And when we are coming to form that organization as a political party, or we are coming together as political parties to make a coalition, of course, there is that belief and there's that zeal that the people of Kenya, or the people, the citizens themselves and the members of the constituent parties, they believe in. So what are you believing in? Are you only for winning an election and then after elections that you have nothing else to serve for that party? That's the sense that they are trying to communicate. And ODM is communicating to us, see, we have an ideology and we have what we believe in. We are in opposition. As much as you can't remain in opposition, then you are not one of us. And this is what we are championing as opposition. You know, you are not one of us. As much as the court will save you and you might not lose your seat, we shall not count you as one of us. And that's the message they are sending to us, that we are not worried of limiting our numbers in parliament.
Yes.
But we want people who has utmost faith,
yes,
and absolute fidelity in our party.
That's it. Here's the thing, Jackson, this is where it starts to get complicated. And maybe there's a connection to whatever it is we're talking about this morning, to the ongoing talks at the Bomas of Kenya, or maybe there's no connection at all. When the ODM, when the minority side in parliament is complaining about the conduct of one Speaker of the National Assembly, saying, well, we feel we are not represented here, and every time we come with our grievances that you're supposed to tackle, you do not tackle these grievances. Now, what is the next course of action then from Moses Wetangula? Because we do know very well that, well, the next course of action is a majority of these expelled members of parliament might run to court and come up with cases essentially to try and protect their party representation. If indeed that doesn't happen, or these cases then essentially start to pull for a long period, what is the next course? What's the next course of action from Moses Wetangula, Jackson?
Of course, certainly, if they do not proceed to court, and that would mean that the decision of the ODM party stands. Definitely, as the Speaker of National Assembly, Honorable Wetangula will be bound to follow that decision, because that will be a final decision. But in the event that they move to the tribunal, because they have to go to the tribunal and then escalate the dispute further to the High Court.
Yes.
In the event that they do so, you will understand one thing, that previously, before promulgation of our 2010 constitution, we had something we used to call the parliamentary sovereignty, all right? So when our new constitution was enacted, now the constitution came up with something we call constitutional supremacy, meaning that the parliament is no longer sovereign, but the constitution is supreme. And that's why even the hands of the speaker and all elected officials will be bound by the decisions of our courts, because our courts are the only forum where the interpretation and the enforcement, so to speak, pronouncement relating to the constitution emanate from.
Yes.
So if they go to court, certainly, or the tribunal, and the tribunal suspends that decision temporarily, then there's nothing that the speaker will do, because the parliament is bound by the decisions of our courts and our tribunals, like this political parties tribunal. So at that point, the issue is not about the ideology and the space in terms of our political parties. The issue is about the supremacy of the constitution, because even these members, these 5 members who have been declared unfit to serve on the basis of lack of loyalty to the party, even them, they are also entitled to constitutional rights, and I believe they have elected, they are representatives of individuals, electorate, who are also entitled to those constitutional rights.
Yes.
So if they go to court, it will not be a matter of the court saving them, but the court declaring what their rights are and whether they violated any written law. Because one thing that you need to understand, my friend, is this.
Yes.
In this country, we conflate 2 issues. There is sycophancy to a politician and the party loyalty. You see, so party loyalty, because the political parties, if you look at the architecture of the political party ideals, aspirations, missions, and visions should be in tandem with the constitution and the other laws. Let me take a simple example. For example, Honorable this women rep for Nairobi, Honorable Pasaris.
Yes.
If you look at the grievances, or rather the grounds upon which she was summoned and disciplined, that she voted for the Finance Act, which was perfectly within her right. There was nothing unconstitutional about her taking a position That because that is a legal issue, and the law,
yes,
the Constitution and the Political Parties Act allows her to look at the bill before the parliament objectively.
What is supreme? But the party already said that we as a party, this is where we stand.
No, that's what I'm telling you,
yes,
my friend.
Yes.
That pronouncement by the political party cannot override Article 95 of the Constitution, which clearly defines the mandate and the role of a member of parliament. You understand?
Yes.
So if they say that a member of parliament will represent people, you see, and will legislate and will oversight, and a piece of legislation is presented before House for debate, and the member of parliament applying her or his mind on that legislation feels that this legislation is good for people that I represent, a party cannot come and say, no, you are wrong. It cannot say so. So you realize that most of these things, and that's why it has been very difficult actually to expel a member of parliament from the political party. It has been done before by several parties, both on the government side and the opposition side. Because in most cases, these members of parliament or individuals who engineer these disciplinary proceedings, they conflate the loyalty to the party, which should be actually also loyalty to the Constitution, and the sycophancy to the a particular politician. Because if you call people to go for demonstration, for example, let's take it as an example, that we are demonstrating, we feel that this person did not win election fairly, and I'm a member of your party, and in my view, based on the material evidence at my disposal, I'm convinced the election was, or rather the presidential elections were reasonably fair, and I'm therefore not going to participate in that mandamano of yours. I mean, that one is in tandem with the law, and that's why it's very difficult for some of these charges to be sustained at the tribunal and at the High Court.
Yes.
And that's the dilemma that these people get themselves in.
Pretty much. I'll be coming back to you on that again, Jackson, because again, when we look at what is getting drummed up around the Finance Act, around the development agenda that the president has in the country, at no one point has he said that this wasn't in my Kenya Kwanza manifesto. He keeps on saying that this was in my manifesto. Whatever was in my manifesto is what I want to implement, Jackson. Whatever I said during my campaigns is what I want to implement. So any other member of parliament, Castro then, who says, well, I want to work with the president, the direct interpretation here is that I am going to support the manifesto for the president, because Castro, the president has not stopped saying that my development agenda, essentially what you're seeing now, is me implementing my manifesto. In fact, every place it goes, he keeps on reminding every other politician, every other member of parliament who's following him is saying, well, you remember what we said in our manifesto, we gotta do it now, and we gotta achieve it. So the interpretation for any other party, that even any judge was gonna sit in front of this case and say, well, what is the case here? It's easy for any other person who's looking at it from outside, inside, saying that the likes of Jalango, the likes of Ochanda decided to support the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza. That is essentially them saying, we support this party and its agenda.
Yeah, of course, you say in the House of Parliament, the majority side, which is in the government, government side, of course, it's supporting and it advocates and promotes the government values and manifestos and agendas. So in the House, of course, they always and only support those motions that, of course, promotes the agenda. Any other agenda that is put on the floor of the House and does not promote the Kenya Kwanza agenda, they might not be in that motion for long, and they might not decide it in their favor.
Yeah.
You see, as much as we say members of parliament have the right of choice, you see, you have that right of choice, but you have no right to choose consequences. Once you have done that choice, the consequences, of course, you will bear them. And those consequences, as my brother said here, that the rights of women, honorable Passaris, they choose to vote for the bill. But you see, we have, as much as we are having the constitution and the right, we have the standing orders of the House, and then we have the stand and the value, I said, of political party. So our coalition, or the azimio coalition, I'm not for azimio.
Yeah.
It is not our coalition.
Castro you can be. You can declare. There's no problem.
It's a coalition. No, I'm not there. But you see, azimio coalition, the head start, and the government had a start. The government was to promote and vote for the Finance Act so that they can promote and they can be able to fund and actually actualize their dream. And the dream was the better. You know, the better, the bottom-up economic transformation. That's the agenda for the Financing Act, and see how effectively and efficient they can be able to actually implement the better. And see, when the azimio came up with the stand that we are not supporting this Finance Act, you know, it is not part of our agenda. And it actually, what we believe in a more people agendas than these was a pro-government agenda. So that's why they actually curtailed the members of parliament not to vote for the bill. And you see in the House, there's more politics than people think. The politics in the House, they are more regal and more evil. You know, there is a lot of lobbying, there's a lot of coercion, there's a lot of manipulation in those House. And that's why you see in more cases, even the finance bill, you had a case like we were paid to vote for the bill, because the government in this, such a bill is determined to win that bill. And in the House, in many cases, as much as these fights are there in public, in the House, those fights, they are for lobbying, and much money is used in the House when it's come to lobbying.
Pretty much.
Policies.
Now, Jackson, then, the facts are bare. Is there a thin line between supporting Kenya Kwanza and supporting the government? And number two, I want to take you back to when ODM members of parliament walked out of parliament when the cabinet secretary, Treasury and National Planning, called the budget the Kenya Kwanza budget. At that point, they all stood up and walked out when he was presenting what the members of parliament had essentially passed as a finance bill 2023, just before it was tabled to the president's table for ascending into the Finance Act 2023. They walked out because, according to them, they were like, well, this is not a Kenya Kwanza budget, it is a Kenyan budget, so call it a Kenyan budget. So, in hindsight, whatever they're saying is that now any other person then who sides with the president is essentially supporting the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza. The Kenya Kwanza manifesto is essentially the Kenya Kwanza budget, according to them. So Raila Amolo Odinga then looks aside and says, well, how is it that I'm going to push for an opposition or have a strong minority in parliament if right now the members within my party were publicly declaring to support the agenda for the president, which is a Kenya Kwanza agenda, and the manifesto for the president, which is a Kenya Kwanza manifesto. According to him, yes, that is you supporting the party, so go right there and support it. And number three, Jackson, at this time then, when there are ongoing conversations at the Bomas of Kenya on the legitimacy of this government, in fact, that is one of them, on the audit of the 2022 election results, that's one of the agenda. Raila Amolo Odinga is asking, even if you wanted to support this particular party, why can't you wait until at least we're done with this? Because we as a party are also asking these questions on even the legitimacy of that election result.
You see, my friend, I will start with the last bit.
Yes.
The issue of waiting.
Yes.
Life is not stopping. The clock is running. We are headed to 2027.
That's it.
So if you're a member of parliament and you refrain from engaging in political and legal activities on the basis basis of waiting for the so-called audit, then you are going to be overtaken by events. Time is going to leave you behind, and you will find yourself in 2027 still waiting. Is that
the moral question you're putting here? Because as a party, you would like to know whether you want or not.
No. You see,
somebody's telling you.
You see, Simba. Yes. A society, you see, trying to put together diverse people.
Yes.
from very diverse cultural background, diverse economic background, and diverse academic background, we needed a reference point,
yes,
a document that would bind all of us together so that we have baselines on almost everything. And that's why we came up with the Constitution. The Constitution has established standards and thresholds and institutions for establishing the validity or otherwise of an election. You see, so in terms of validity, the Constitution has mechanisms of validating an election. You get? So legally speaking, the issue of whether the current regime was properly elected into the office or not, ideally is neither here nor there. We know that debate was settled a long time ago, and all these things that are going on, the so-called audit, in my very humble view, these are political activities which are meant to keep people upbeat, especially supporters of particular individuals who might also attempt to run again. But more fundamentally, we need to understand one thing, that when you talk of an agenda of a political party, especially before the election, you need to look at it in the sense that the Constitution has established the threshold of any political activity in the country. So that when the azimio were designing and crafting their manifesto, and Kenya Kwanza were equally crafting their manifesto, it was imperative upon the two political coalitions to ensure that their manifestos are in tandem with the Constitution. So when you talk of economic activities, the plan, for example, for Kenya Kwanza, it was necessary and important to ensure that that plan was in tandem, for example, with Article 43 of the Constitution and economic rights. So if after election, and here you need to remember one thing, after election, it is only the manifesto of the winning political party that is on the table for implementation. The Azimio manifesto or agenda is no longer there because they did not succeed in capturing power, you get. So it's the Kenya Kwanza manifesto which is on the table. So if you are looking, for example, on economic transformation, you need to look at the Kenya Kwanza manifesto vis-a-vis Article 43 on economic rights of Kenya. So if I'm a member, and I'm not holding brief for these fellas, if I'm a member of Azimio, for example, a member of parliament for Azimio, and the government of the day, the administration of the day, has a plan, I need to look at that plan in relation to what the law says. So if they are talking of bottom-up transformation agenda, for example, and I look at it and I see this agenda is in tandem with Article 43 about economic rights of Kenya, and I support that agenda, I cannot be accused of supporting Kenya Kwanza manifesto. I'm supporting the government agenda which is in tandem with the Constitution and the aspiration of the people I represent.
Jackson, what is the role of the opposition or the minority in parliament? What is that role?
Of course.
Should you find yourself in the opposition, what are you supposed to do?
Of course, and this thing actually, even those who violate it, they know their role. The first thing is to keep the government in the day in check. To oversight the government. To oversight the government is not synonymous with opposing anything proposed by the government.
Is it right then for the ODM party to come in and say, fine, we are the minority. We did know very well that we didn't have the numbers. In fact, it was already known that we're not going to win on this Finance Act. Is it okay for the ODM party to come in and ask the likes of
it's within their right.
In this sense, are you going to sit here and say that you liked everything in that Finance Act? So if you didn't like it and you know very well that you're not going to win, that we were not going to win, why did you vote against it?
No, and again, I agree with you. It will be extremely wrong for any member of parliament, whether it's from the minority or majority side, to say that I totally agree with this bill, because that one will be tantamount to sycophancy.
So is it okay then to say, then that they failed to play their role in parliament in accordance with their position? We are the opposition, we're the minority, we're supposed to play that part, and you did not.
No, of course, unless they mean playing your part, opposing. Because being a minority does not mean your role is to oppose, but your role is to keep in check. And keeping in check and oversight is to examine independently, objectively, whatever piece of legislation has been tabled on the floor of the House, and look at the specific clauses and see whether they favor your people in your own independent view. So if you see you are a member of minority and there is a bill which has come from the other side, and you apply your brains on that bill, and in your assessment, which might be wrong by the way, in your assessment you feel that this bill is good for the people I represent, then you cannot be victimized for that. And if you are victimized, then the victimization should be political, not legal. But you see now, once you get to take the battle to the stages of expulsion,
yes,
now you have decided to slide into the arena of legal. Now we look at it from the legal and constitutional perspective. And therefore, the question that the person will be trying the facts here, whether it will be chairman of the tribunal or the judge, will be looking at, by supporting this bill, how did this member of parliament transgress the Constitution, the Political Parties Act, and the Constitution of ODM? And by the way, now I believe none of us is really privy to the nitty-gritties of ODM Constitution.
That's it.
But my guess would be, you would be shocked that these guys have not violated any provision of that Constitution. You will be surprised. These guys are just angry that these fellas went against the wishes of the party leader.
Castro, I'm going to put the same question to you that Jackson is really expeditiously explained. Here's the thing that I'm going to put to you. That the role of the opposition, that we are in opposition, that the role of the opposition is to keep the government in check. That the interpretation of that is that you're always going to see where they're making a mistake. You're always going to see where you don't like, and then talk about that.
Yes, of course, the role of the opposition, of course, is to oversight the government, its government agendas, and more critically oppose its motions and agendas in the floor of the House, because that's where they win, and that's where, of course, they can oppose it objectively. And as azimio and Kenya Kwanza, of course, they had opposing priorities, and they had opposing agendas when they were coming to elections, and the people had to interrogate their agendas, their manifestos, as they are giving them. And the opposing agendas does not mean that there is at any single point they are coming to intersect, as much as they will get into talks, or even in the House they have an agreement.
Yes.
But same, there is those agendas that the opposition may feel they are more related to their agendas in the House, and they might opt to support the government on that. But that does not mean, of course, they doesn't have the personal perspective. But the personal perspective in the House is influenced by the political party. You know, the political parties, they are more influential, they are more powerful when it's come to the formulation and the agenda setting, and of course the lobbying of the priorities and policies in the House.
Yes.
So, and that's why we have the majority leader and the minority leader, and it's not a walk in the park in that House. For them, it's not a luxury place for them.
Yeah.
They had to get to work on it to see that this agenda is getting through, or we must fail this agenda. And that's why even Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah does not see that as he has no time to relax, because he enjoys the majority of the members in Parliament. Because even ODM lobbies from those in government, because they were, and those elements that they may seem that, see, there is some sense with azimio, and because voting also takes secrecy in Parliament, they might decide to vote otherwise. And that's why even Kimani Ichung'wah has to lobby to some members from the opposition side. So that business goes on in the House from both parties. So it is not a thing that we can say that the opposition only needs to oppose or criticize the government. There is that option for them to also say that the government has done something great, and of course we enjoy and we support the government on that. And I'm predicting a scenario where we might see now the opposition actually thanking the government more than we thought.
Castro, but the party has already told you, we don't want this. Jackson,
Yes.
when does the party become supreme? The party has told you, listen, we don't want this. So when you go to the National House, you either absent yourself from voting on this particular bill, and should you find yourself in that house on that day, because you also have that responsibility to play, we're not going to take that away from you, you say no. Because on these particular issues here, we do not accept. But even the party is telling you, you see, we can't win in that national house. The only thing that we want to do is raise our voice on this particular issue. And the only way we can raise our voice is that if we enjoy majority support from you guys. Then how is it then that the likes of Esther Passaris go right ahead and say, well, we're going to support this particular bill? When does the party become supreme? Jackson, in 2 minutes.
What I would tell you is that from my understanding of how the system works and how the law, what the law says, is that when members of parliament are making a decision on every question put before them, they do so as individual representatives of their constituencies, 290 plus the others, you get. So they don't vote on a bill as ODM or Kenya Kwanza. You vote on a bill as a member of X constituency, you get. So meaning the law expects you to have interrogated that question, whether it's a bill or it's just an ordinary motion, and then ask yourself whether this motion is actually in the best interest of the people that you represent. So ODM, Kenya Kwanza, and all these other political parties, constitutionally speaking, they are not expected to have a vote in the National Assembly. It's individual members. And these individual members, when they are voting, they are not voting in their capacity or their representatives of their respective political parties, no. They are voting in their capacity and representatives of the constituencies.
Yes.
The people that elected them.
Yes. When do you stop becoming the minority?
So the minority is in terms of demarcation of conduct business.
That's it.
There is a wing that did not succeed.
Yes.
And there is a wing that succeeded in terms of the orderly conduct of house business.
Yes.
But it has nothing to do with the independent individual decision that each member of parliament will take on each issue.
Yes.
You get?
Yes.
So when you are taking a decision on an issue, you are taking a decision on that issue in your capacity as a representative. Because you see the constitution says that the National Assembly shall constitute this number of individuals who represent people and constituencies, not who represent political parties.
Yes.
So the issue of minority and minority is there to provide order when it comes to conduct of house business.
And
it has nothing to do with the taking a vote or casting a vote on any particular issue.
Yes. When we say that indeed for house business to go on, we even need the leader of the minority in the house to be present.
Yes. For orderly conduct of its business, so that we know who is this, where are they, where are they seated, where are they coming from. But when it comes to the issue, the decision making of a member of parliament, you are making that decision in the best interest of the people you represent, not in the interest of your political party.
But when we are lobbying in the national house as a minority, what is the interpretation of that?
Of course, now we take into account the fact that there are other external forces which influence the decision making of MPs. You get? So these external forces might, or rather will include their party leaders and their political influences, so that you caucus as a political party and you say, now this is informal influence. You see? So you say as a political party, this is the position. So we urge our members, when they are taking a position in the House, to take also this position into consideration. But constitutionally speaking, members of parliament are supposed to champion the interest of their representatives, not the interest of their political parties. And in the event of conflict, where there is an interpose, you see, you need to fall, or rather to side with the interest of your people, as opposed to the interest of your political party.
Pretty much. Once we come back then, Castro will start to weigh in on the next issue that is on the table. Those talks at the Bomas of Kenya are already going on. What we do know is that even the technical committee members that were picked then to advise the 10-member committee that is meeting at the Bomas of Kenya have been doing background talks on issues that are going to advise the decisions that 10-member committee is going to make. One of them that has stood out is the reconstitution of IEBC. There's something that is standing out there saying we need to adopt some of the ways that we reconstitute IEBC. What are they talking about? Once we come back right here on The Morning Draft. Good morning.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection, added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park, fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for all your visibility and marketing needs. We at Lookuptv understand your business needs and want to work with you on your marketing journey, giving you solutions that will take you to the next level. Call us today on 0705 572 358 or send an email to sales@lookuptv.co.ke and kickstart this amazing journey. Welcome to Lookuptv, your official SME media partner.
Hi, and welcome to Tujenge Home. Your number one show when it comes to all things architecture, real estate, property development, interior design. You get it right here on Tujenge Home. When the food is ready.
You want to serve them?
Dinner is served. Let's go. Let's go.
All right, welcome back. Let's just do the final touch on that particular issue of that disciplinary action from ODM to the 5 members who've been expelled, and the 3, by the way, that have been fined. And those who've been fined have been told you've got to pay that money in 60 days? 7 days?
It's 60 days.
60 days. 60 days. Failure to which, again, they would come in and pronounce that you haven't paid, and so we're going to escalate a particular punishment. Castro. Let's do a final touch on this particular issue. Just off camera, I've seen some of the questions that have come to me, and I'm going to read them to you so you try and actually weigh in on them. And this is what they're saying, that indeed, this is ODM essentially saying, without us, without our political party, some of you might have not essentially ascended to these positions. That we are the reason. It's our outfit that has essentially helped you to grow to those positions. So in majority of the business that we conduct, we speak as a voice. So when we say, let's go left, we do understand and we want to believe that you go left with us. Because whether you like it or not, we know you represent your constituency, you know you represent your own views in the National House, but we as a party are in the opposition. And so the opposition is got to play its business throughout.
Yeah, sure. Of course, let me say, when you look at the persons who have been expelled from ODM,
yeah,
they have actually they enjoyed the influence of ODM from their localities and from the places they were voted in.
Yes.
Because political parties are very influential, and they are very influential political vehicles.
Yes.
That they are formed to win governments and form governments and actually now try to work for the people. You know, when you look at personalities, there are so many people who vied with different political parties in these areas, and others, of course, vied independently. But they were not voted in, and especially in last election, because people were more on a political agenda, they were more on a political party, and the inclination of your political party more than your personalities and your agenda. So it is the political party, actually, I can also assert to that brought more members of parliament in the house. Yeah. So, and if the political party expels you, and of course it finds your infidelity and your indiscipline in the party and expels you, and then the political party also moves to your locality or to your constituents, and they tell them, say, we expelled your member of parliament and he's not one of us because he went against our wish and our agenda. And of course even the people will deprecate that, because it is the party that influences the people there. You know, and if you look at the members here, most of them come from the western and the Nyanza regions. Yes. And this is the places where ODM enjoys majority. For many years, they have been enjoying this political majority. Yes. In that places. Mm-hmm. So, and if I argue from the perspective of my brother here, and he said that the individual's choice in the house, you know, the individual has a choice in the house. These individuals, of course, they are enjoying that right to choose, because they think of it is us who asked our people to vote for us. But there is that influencing force that actually influenced your neighbors to get yourself in the house. Mm-hmm. And these are the political parties. And you see, unlike the Parliament of Kenya, that where people go to their constituencies and they ask their constituents the votes, a house like South Africa, members of parliament emanate from a party list. And that's why you see a house of like parliament in South Africa, they have no option rather than to take the position of the party, because you are a product of a party list. And if you go against a party and the wish of a party, mm-hmm. whether the agenda is good for the country and they tell you to oppose, you have to oppose that. Because if you go against that agenda, mm-hmm. you have no choice other than to lose your seat. And then another member is adopted from that party. Yes. That's how the comparative of yes. Kenyan parliament and the South African parliament.
That's it. Jackson, just cap this conversation before we move on to the next issue this morning. That it's a party ideology that we are pushing for. Is it true that you can agree this time around that both of these coalitions had an ideology that they represented to the people, and the people voted on the lines of this ideology? So by the end of the day, we have to keep on pushing for our ideology and keep on championing for it, especially at this time when we are told, well, there are negotiations going on.
Yes, and I think I also sympathize with our political parties, because you see the constitution presumes that our political parties have ideologies. But what we are talking about is not actual ideology. Those were manifestos and campaign promises. You get? So what the law and democracy protects is the ideology, what you actually stand for. And ideology is something that takes time to develop. UDA was just formed the other day. By now, it would not have, you can't expect it to have an ideology. You see, ODM has been in existence for a while, of course, but you also understand the influx, the movement of in and out of it. Yes. So the problem that we have is that our political parties have failed to establish an ideology, because the law only protects an ideology. It doesn't protect the manifesto. It doesn't protect the promises. You get? So if they can develop and get to a place whereby even somebody living abroad can say that in my home country there's this party and this party stands for this. You see, that thing that the party stands for is what the law will protect. But if these guys are still such fluid in terms of what they stand for, they mean for, when it comes to, for example, the economic issue, you saw this, how it played out, how the impact of COVID and the Ukrainian war, how it affected our economy. Those who were leaning on the government at that time, that was the main cause. And those who were in the opposition, presumably in the opposition, let's say, so the UDA was saying the problem why our economy was dwindling was because Kenyatta and the handshake partners and the Ukrainian war had nothing to do with this. But ODM at that time believed that the poor economic conditions were occasioned by Ukrainian war and the COVID. So when the positions changed, you see, UDA got into the government, now ODM was now officially in opposition. They now changed the position. Now Ukrainian war and COVID ceased being the cause of poor economic conditions. And on the other side, now it became. You get? And that is the problem that we are in. The problem we are in is that we have political parties which do not have ideology. And the law only protects the ideology. It doesn't protect sycophancy. It doesn't protect manifesto. It doesn't protect political promises and slogans. You get? So if a person changes a slogan, you cannot say that you have failed to support our manifesto, our ideology. No, just say you are not supporting our slogan. You see? And that is the problem that they are in. So I know they have a reason, and this is a dispute that is now live. We will see how it plays out. But all in all, I support party discipline, but I support political parties that are entrenched and they have ideologies.
Pretty much. Good, gentlemen. Allow us to move on to the next issue on the table. The Bomas of Kenya negotiations are taking shape. And we don't know, by the way, we'll be counting. If you've been following, then you do know that we actually have 42 days left for them to come up with a resolution, because we're given 60 days. So we've been counting with them. 18 days are done since they actually got into those negotiations. And remember, they're talking about all the issues, both from the government side and from the opposition side. Now, what has come? This is what the opposition is saying. Castro, on the issue of picking commissioners for IEBC, they're saying, let's go back to 1997 and let each political party in the country pick the IEBC commissioners are going to run the next general election. And this is the reason they're saying that. According to the law now, the president selects a panel. Then the panel would invite the submissions from the public, and then they would interview and vet these commissioners that have essentially tendered in their submissions or applications, and then they send these names to the president, who then picks or approves the names that have been given to him. Let's look at both. What is wrong with the current platform, where the president would essentially pick a selection panel, then the panel would interview commissioners? Or number two, now let's invite political parties who are essentially going to come in and give us the names for the IEBC commissioners. What is wrong with both, or good with both?
You see, the 2010 constitution actually developed, and of course it gave a room for a more developed IEBC, and developing that one, we are trying to get ourselves out of the wall, or from the weaknesses of the later constitution, or the guidance that we are set to a more developed and advanced guidelines. So I don't see anything wrong with the selection of the IEBC of today. The problem here is not the IEBC or the commission. The problem here is the personality, and the problem here is the political interests that want to be served by the commission. Once we want to politicize the commission, then it will never serve an equal, it will never serve independently, and neither will it the partners or the parties that we are involved, they will not go contented. And you see, the IEBC should serve the parties involved equally, of independence.
Yes.
They are mandated, of course, to give us independent process, and they are mandated to give us equal values. They are mandated to give us an equal chance at a justified process, so that each and every party may feel involved and may feel that the process was light and just. And you see, when political parties, because they are the major players in this game, when these political parties want to get involved in the selection of the panel, of course you will presume that, one, the members who are coming to the commission or to the selection panel, they are serving the interest of the party and not serving the interests of the country. And we are looking at an independent electoral commission. And you see, the independence of this electoral commission comes also with the people and the personality of the persons who are delegated to run this commission. One, the chairman and his commission, and also the CEO of the commission. And when you come in to select these personnels, of course, I would go with the selection of with the current the current selection of the panel. Yes. And then the selection of the panel guides the country to getting the commission. Yes. And the quarreling issue here, or the rival issues here, is how do we come up with the selection panel?
That's it.
Today, the regulations or the constitution or act of parliament dictates that the president appoints the selection panel, and then the selection panel guides the country in selecting the commissioners or people who are qualified to hold these positions. And then the selection of the panel, that's where the quarrel is. How do we get involved in this selection of the panel? Because the opposition might feel left out, which is okay, and it's justifiable. They might feel left out from selection of the panel, because when one man is left to select the panel that will select the referee, yes, then he is a player, and then you might feel that the referee, of course, might not be independent and might favor one side. So they are calling for a more involvement, and that's why Kenyans need to get to the bipartisan committee or the technical team, and of course to air their views on how the selection panel and the selection of the commission, yes, should be done. Yes. Because there is that now room for us to give our views on how this selection should be made and how more it can be advanced to serve Kenyans effectively and efficiently.
Pretty much. Jackson, the law is clear. Currently, the Constitution states the president will select the panel. Good. That the panel would be given the powers to do interviews and vet applications for Kenyan citizens who are vying for those positions of IEBC commissioners, then take those names to the president for approval. This is what the opposition is saying, Jackson. The opposition is saying, if you leave the president to pick the panel that is going to select the IEBC commissioners, that is you essentially saying, let the president pick the commissioners himself. And that is what they do not want. So they're given two options. They're saying political parties in the country should essentially pick the commissioners, that's one, or they came up with another one. They said reconstitute the selection panel and call for fresh applications for the panel. That's what they're saying. They're saying, well, that particular panel is in place. No, we don't want it. Just call for fresh applications to the panel. But then that leaves a loophole. So who's going to approve this panel once they make those fresh applications? It has been done before, where political parties essentially picked IEBC commissioners. That was back in 1997, but former President Mwai Kibaki essentially looked at that particular model and just thrashed it and went back to essentially picking his panel that was supposed to pick IEBC commissioners. Jackson, what would be the right model for getting IEBC commissioners?
You say this is the issue, and I think there is a misunderstanding here.
Yeah.
That I think we need to clarify
Yeah.
as players in the legal industry. You see, the selection panel, the president appoints, he doesn't actually pick. You see, the members of the selection panel are not handpicked by the president. These members are drawn from different sectors. Religious organizations represent an individual. Parliament, they represent an individual in terms of the political parties in parliament. You get the Public Service Commission, they represent an individual. So it's not like the president is saying that I'm going to pick, you come here, you come here, you come here, and constitute the panel. Now go and select commissioners. No. These panelists, if I may call them so, who constitute the body that will go out and hunt for commissioners, are presented by individuals. And in fact, if you remember, in the run-up to 2022 general elections, whereby the opposition appeared to be in alliance with the government, you realize that the selection of the 4 commissioners, they now, I don't know whether you would call them famous or infamous, depending on where you start.
Depending on where you start.
Yes. The selection of 4 commissioners, there was a panel that was constituted. But because of the alliance between the government, the informal alliance between the government and the opposition, these fellas managed to sneak through because of other considerations. So when we came up now with the new law, because after that we enacted a new law now, to try and streamline and diversify the process, so to speak, of selection of this panel. We now reduced the influence that Parliament had. Actually, they were reduced by 2. Parliament had to appoint the political parties constituting, rather represented in the Parliament, who had to nominate you, but that number was now reduced to 1. So we have the panel that is constituted essentially by diverse bodies, religious organizations, there is a Public Service Commission, there is, of course, the political parties represented in Parliament. So it's a diverse kind of platform where these people are sourced. So actually, it's not the president coming to say, you Jackson, you Simba, come and serve here in this panel. No. The president only appoints, and you see the appointment is like appointment of a judge. So you see, so it's a ceremonial thing at the end. But these individuals have been drawn from different bodies, and these different bodies have been responsible for submitting their names. You get, so that when they get there, now the president gives them the mandate. You understand? And I think that is something that a lot of people need to understand. It's not the president appointing members of that, like picking them, saying so and so you will serve in this panel. No. That panel is constituted of people who have been presented by these diverse interest groups. And that's why I strongly believe that is a better way of doing it. Because you see, the danger of saying that we go with the PPG model of 1997, one thing you need to understand is that at that time, a number of these institutions had not come of age, were not developed to the extent that they could present independently a person to represent them. For example, LSK. So when you say the LSK is representing a representative to the panel, can you say that that is President Uhuru appointing a person to serve in that panel from LSK? No, it's LSK presenting. So in the model of 1997 is that at that point, with the history of KANU regime, everything was like KANU, you see. So they thought the best way would be these players who are going to participate in an election, let them come together and present their representatives. But right now, we have institutions. Institutions have come of age. We can represent the organization of churches and Muslims and whatever. They can present a person to represent them, you see, in that panel. Another thing you need to understand is, what if you have 2 political parties? You say now Jubilee, they are going to present, not Jubilee, Azimio, they give 4. Kenya Kwanza give 5. And they say now we have a representative body or rather panel. And the following day, you wake up, you realize Azimio has joined Kenya Kwanza, and now Kenya Kwanza is fronting Azimio leader as the flag bearer for the next general election. What will you have? You'll have a biased commission. And that's why we need a commission that is constituted of individuals who have been sourced by non-political actors,
yes.
people whose positions are not constantly switching and changing.
We're coming to you, Castro. Jackson on that. Castro, this particular model as enshrined within the law, the Jackson is saying, well, it looks bulletproof. Do you agree that it's bulletproof? Because the opposition is saying that even within this particular system, it's easier for the president to find a way to have a say on who essentially then is representative of these bodies that are supposed to constitute the panel that is supposed to give us the IEBC commissioners. Do you believe that the president would have a way in determining who comes from these bodies?
No, I don't think the president has a way of determining who comes to this selection body.
Yes.
Because these bodies, of course, it is a way that they govern themselves. As much as there is that external influence that might come from the president and from the other headquarters, but it is for the body, of course, to give to the country the best man that they think can serve on that selection panel.
Yes.
Like my brother said, like LSK, that body, it is the body itself that pioneers a person to the selection panel, say like Public Service Commission, the Parliamentary Commission also, and of course even the religious group. So also the religious group, it is the religious group, of course, they give us independently as a religious group. Yes. A person who has no interest of serving whether the opposition or the government, because for them it's to give us an independent body. So their work is to operate independently as much as external forces, which we cannot ignore, because those external forces, they are there. Yes. Because the people who are there to manipulate the process, of course, because the politics of the day is to serve the political interests, your political interests. So there are people who actually they start their process by manipulating the process as early at the formulation stage. So the formulation stage of the selection panel will actually determine the commission and the end result of the commission.
Yes. Here's the quote, and I'm going to read it to you, Jackson, so that you see whether your argument on whether this is actually bulletproof or not stands the water. According to the opposition, since the law is quite clear on these bodies that are supposed to give us the members who are supposed to constitute that panel, the Azimio coalition is saying it's easy then for the government to have a way into these bodies that are supposed to give us these members, for them to have their commissioners picked in these interviews. That's what they're saying. That it's quite clear. I mean, we know the bodies that are supposed to give us this particular members who are supposed to make the selection panel. So it will be very easy then for these particular bodies to be interfered with by the government. Therefore, we need to change it.
No, change it to what? Which one? Now, which one?
Political parties.
But you see, the point is, allow me also to make a political statement. me to make a political statement.
Yes.
You see, in the last general election, we saw attempts by government interfering with the outcome of election. Of course, it's people can argue it, but looking at the material that were presented before the Supreme Court, and they went and contested, you saw the government trying to interfere, but it didn't succeed. So that is a proof that actually the system perhaps cannot be beaten by the government. But to a more important thing is, I think we need to advance, because I see a lot of dishonesty and falsehood in this argument and debates and whatnot. But we need to start from where we are by doing the evaluation, the things that have worked and the things that have not worked. If you look at it objectively, independently, and you apply your minds correctly, you will appreciate that perhaps the last presidential election we had was one of the fairest in terms of looking at the challenges vis-a-vis the outcome and the results. So if you were to start it from that point, I know there are people who are aggrieved, myself included, but objectively speaking, you will see that IBC that we had in 2022 did its best to deliver on their mandate. And you need to credit it on the basis that we live in a very corrupt society. In fact, we put bodies like IBC on a limelight and we pressure them to deliver. But at the same time, we are doing all we can to ensure that it doesn't deliver. Everybody is trying to twist it. But ironically, at the same time, we expect it to deliver optimally, which is absolutely crazy. So looking at the material that we have,
yes,
the data that we have,
yes,
and you do a proper analysis and evaluation on what IBC did and where they went wrong and what they did right, you realize that we have come a long way. And perhaps we don't need a lot of radical laws and bodies and panels like those that are going on, trying to find or to do the audit. I mean, the law that is in place is sufficient.
Yes.
We just need goodwill from our politicians, both from government and from the opposition, to support the system that we have and ensure that it works. Because previously it has attempted and it has worked, and there are some instances where it did not work. So for me, what we have actually can be improved on.
Yes.
We don't need a new model of selection or panel. We don't need a new structure. We don't need a new report. We don't need a new audit. All those things are relevant. IBC has structures. It will give us the audit and we look at those figures and we critique it and we know where we want to improve.
Pretty much. Castro, you only have a minute to respond to this, by the way. Let's jump in it. Then this is according to Nandi Senator Cherargei is saying double standards by Azimio. Okatinga is unprecedented and hypocritical because Kalonzo was in State House yesterday, where before him, my law lecturer, Senator Prof. Ojienda, Jalango, and others visited the State House. Have they been expelled? I was asking that question. Will Kalonzo also be expelled from the Azimio coalition for going to State House yesterday? Tinga met RUTO several times. Will he also be expelled from ODM? 1 minute.
You know, Kalonzo is not a member of ODM as much as he is the party leader of Wiper, so he has his own party, and he does not even need the permission of Raila Odinga to visit or have a talk with William Ruto, the president. So Kalonzo Musyoka being seen in Parliament, you know, as a principal and as also a co-chair in the bipartisan dialogue committee. So we expect, and actually even physically seeing him there, we can see that these are a white smoke coming from Bomas of Kenya, and we expect that there are more results that are coming, and you know, it's an indication that maybe or maybe not there is something that is being cooked by the government and the opposition.
Pretty much. Jackson, 45 seconds, by the way, we need to be out. This is what Prof. Tom Ojienda is saying. My party has today expelled me from working with Mr. President Ruto. I have no apology and continue to work with the president. Is that the right response? Jackson, 45 seconds.
Yeah, it's from his side, he's entitled to say whatever he wants to say.
Yeah.
From ODM's side, they're entitled to take whatever action they want to take. So, but the middle ground is the law, and the issue will be decided.
Pretty much. Take this gentleman then back to the time that he joined us right here on The Morning Drip online and Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. I am at Kiage Simba. By the way, majority of the contributions also on our website on www.lookuptv.co.ke. We take a tiny breather right now. Once we come back, we shall be talking about the process of buying land in the country. The manager of Covered Homes, Mr. Stephen Njau, is right here in the studio. So let's take a tiny breather. Once we come back, get into that conversation. Good morning.
Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for